Hey guys, as you can see, I'm not here today, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had a good start on your grant proposal. So, you just finished watching the movie Extraordinary Measures, where we saw the efforts that father would go through to be able to find the researchers and get the funds to be able to treat the disease that their children had, Pompeii's disease. Getting grants is essential if you're going to have research that continues. In this particular project, you're going to take on the role of the researcher who needs funds to be able to continue the research. And so you're going to actually go through the steps of what it takes to make a real research grant. Now, there's a couple ways that you can tackle this task. For many of you who have been in a research class, perhaps you have stumbled upon a research path, an organism that you really enjoyed working with and you'd like to learn more about or extend your research even further. So you could certainly develop a grant proposal that could request funds and materials and equipment to support your current endeavor or a modification of such. If you have reached the end of your ropes and you don't feel like there's any more meat on the bone of your research, or you're just not interested in the topic of study, perhaps there's something else that's jumped on into your mind and you're really excited about. And so you can take that new research idea and develop a grant proposal to request funds or materials to support that. If you're not interested in that, perhaps you'd like to take one of our many units of study from health and medical science and think of some activities or exercises that you would like to improve or to include that would then enrich that unit into the future. So you could develop a grant requesting the funds to accomplish that goal. Maybe it's a special trip or a special activity that would enhance that particular unit of study. Lastly, just like in the film where the father is trying to get money and get research going on Pompeii's disease, perhaps there's a particular disease that you would like to write a grant for or a disorder. So you could choose a specific treatment for a disease or disorder and then figure up a grant that would then allow for funding or additional research on that particular treatment. Now, as you are developing that project, you want to think about a few things. Who's going to benefit from this? If it's your research, your HMSA class or future HMSA classes, or, folks that are suffering from a particular disease. What's going to be done in this project? Is it so that you can continue your research? What is the purpose of this project? When will it start? When will it end? Where will it be done? Why can you do it better than anyone else? Now, in terms of organization, I believe we have 7 sections for this grant proposal. The first section is our purpose statement and title. Here, we're going to write 1 or 2 sentences specifically stating the expected outcome or the goal of the grant. It might be in the form of a hypothesis or a description. The key point here is that you want to use a few words, be very direct, and when you're creating your title, pull your title directly from that purpose statement and make sure that it's succinct and basically one sentence. For example, what if we wanted to get a grant to be able to put together a dietary handbook for teens to be able to help them deal with their disease? Our purpose for that would be that teenagers are at risk for type 2 diabetes. They need support and direction to make wise dietary choices on a daily basis. A dietary handbook designed specifically for teens will be created and made available through the National Diabetes Association. Our title would be A Teenager's Guide to Healthy Eating. Now, our second section is where we're going to do our project overview. Here we'll write 2 or 3 paragraphs, kind of repeating the purpose statement, being very concise, but not yet specific, because this is just an overview of our project. You want to make sure that this section is going to show a strong direction and purpose, and make it so that the reader wants to continue reading and have support for the project. So in this section, you're going to write a summary of the work, which introduces the reader to the project and creates interest and enthusiasm, invoking in the reader a sense of importance. So you can actually get a little bit of creative here, perhaps even using an anecdote or a case study to kind of pull them in. Now, section 3 is where we're going to establish our background and the importance of this project. Here's where we're going to give clear evidence with data supporting the need for the work and to show that the work is important. Identifying any other previous work that has been done to address the problem and show why more work is needed. So here we're going to write several paragraphs that's going to really address the need and how you intend to address the need. And so you might include some graphs, specific data. You might even have a few images that then can really compound that importance. Now, section 4 is where we're going to get to the details. Here's where we're going to write our goals, our objectives, and our procedures. Now, our goals, we should have one or two goals that are going to describe the outcome of the work. Goals are actually kind of general, and they should be very idealistic. They're not necessarily, a goal is not necessarily direct or measurable. So, for example, our goal for our handbook would be to improve the health of teenagers by changing their eating habits. Now, the objectives, we should have 3 or 4 objectives to clarify how we're going to meet our goals. Now, objectives are different from goals in that they're very specific and we can measure their outcomes. Each objective will have to have specific activities that we're going to use to obtain our goal. With each objective, we'll also want to explain how we're going to evaluate that goal. So, for example, one objective could be we're going to decrease the incidence of type 2 diabetes in teenagers by 25%. So we can actually measure that over time. Finally, we'll have our procedure. How are we going to carry out our experiment or our research or our final product? In our procedure, we should include details of how the work will be carried out as well as the specific outcomes expected after the different parts of the work have been completed. The outcomes should be directly related to the goals and objectives. So you want to have detailed steps. Who's responsible for each step? How each step is going to be completed. You want a time frame for each step. And you want a detailed description of that finished product. Now, section 5 is where we're going to establish where our resources can be obtained. We're going to go onto the internet and we're going to look up different groups that are directly related to our topic. Under each resource listing, we're going to have a little paragraph that explains how the work of that particular resource is related to the proposal. So we're going to basically have a list of agencies, organizations, research laboratories, industries, individuals, anybody that's involved into this work that could support what we're going to be doing. So, for example, we might include the American Diabetes Association in our resource section of our grant proposal for our pamphlet. Section 6 is our summary and evaluation section. Here, we're going to summarize the positive impact that the project will have on the target group. We're going to assume that we have the funds and we've completed the project. And then we'll want to suggest how we could evaluate the work over a short term and or also over long term. And then relate all of that evaluation back to our goals and objectives. How will we know that we've done a good job? What will we be looking for? The final piece of our grant is where we're going to have our citations. You want at least 5 sources that is gone into supporting the reason for your grant choice and some of those expected outcomes. Now, as you're producing your grant proposal, there's a few things that you want to keep in mind. We want to write to convince the reader. We want to stay optimistic about our outcomes. We want to assume that they really don't know anything about the topic, and so we want to try to be as specific and detailed, especially as we're describing what our project is, why we're doing it, and then our steps. What are we going to be doing? In our title and in that overview, we want to have something that's going to wow our audience. We want to make sure that we're including figures, tables, images so that we can tell our story. We want to keep it neat, clean, well organized, to the point, easy to read. Revising all along the way and then refining it at the end. We want to turn in a quality product because these could actually be grants that we would submit to different agencies to perhaps obtain funds for your individual project or perhaps even for the HMSA. Now, when we're writing, we don't want to put ourselves into it. We want to be very technical. We want to get rid of the I. So anything that refers to us, what we're going to do, we want to make it a little bit more clinical and try to keep it more on the project and not on us. Remember, in a grant, you're actually selling a product. A good proposal comes from a good idea and a good plan. A good idea is one that is meaningful and much needed. Something that could actually solve a problem, like maybe providing clean water to a village in Africa. The good plan means that it's doable, it's well thought out. You know, can you accomplish it? If you're able to do these things, if you're able to put together a good idea and your good plan and then articulate that in your grant proposal, then you're assured to receiving your funding. Thank you. Good luck. I'll be back on Wednesday to be able to help you with this. I'm sure Miss Dudley will be a great resource as you begin work on your project.